I want to give you an example in identifying stakeholders and basically knowing your stakeholders. I once worked on a project that was meant to deliver a new software program to a team that collected data from different supermarket and turned into reports. So I think you can imagine the amount of interactions are involved in such projects. The designer was intent on making the program as user friendly as possible, which was definitely a big aim, but sad, a good aim. Definitely, all the clients want it to be very. Even the client wants the interfaces to be the user friendly. So we should also aim as a good product. We should talking about the software. We should make our screens very user friendly. But sadly, his definition of usable was significantly different from that of the actual users. So many a times, I'm very sure that this is a practical issue faced by all of us as a project manager in some point of time, where we will have a interface in the client's organization, and sometimes there is a disconnect between them and their end users. Usually what happens, the person will be in IT projects, the persons are always from the IT department of the client organization. So it can happen that they themselves have a disconnect with the users, or they are new to the organization, they don't know the business of their company. So it becomes a disconnect because for you can't talk to the end users directly, because that's how the protocol in most of the organizations are followed. You usually have an interface, they talk to their end users, and then you get the requirement from this interface, your client face of the so that's how it happens. So the designer had focused on making the software so simple that anyone could use it, even a no voice, when in fact only a very limited number of data entry clerks were going to use it. They were rather upset, discover they weren't to be consulted, and quite disgruntled when they were presented with a system that it appeared would make their work take 4 times longer than before. So basically it turned out to be opposite. The reality was that for them, speed was the most important factor. Ignoring these stakeholders led to disastrous consequences for the project. The entire design was scrapped and 6 months' work had to be redone. So that you can imagine the amount of the rework, the amount of the cost which has been impacted. So this story, what it tells, that basically sometimes the end users, because at the end of for a IT project, the end users give you the approval because they are going to use the system, and that's how the IT or the technology makes their life easy. But sometimes what happens, the end user is never in the picture while developing the whole software. Then it turns out to be very, very disastrous, because they may have certain primary requirements, for example, the speed. So, but while designing, the client interface would have told you something else. We need to design it simple. So it turns out to be disastrous because the design is not on the speed, the design on the looks of the interface, or make it on the usability part of it. So it happens, it shows a very clear requirement mismatch and a communication problem. So that's why identifying the stakeholders and knowing your stakeholders, that's why many company, they usually they send some people for the on-site to the client's place, sit with the end users, they just collaborate for the that's how the agile project management has come into the picture, like wherein it's more about the collaborative approach, which mostly gives you success because you're aware of the user expectation. And one more thing is, failing in the planning phase can be equally disastrous for your project. I'm sure these are the basic project management thing. One is failing because you are, as a project management manager, should be aware of what is to be done, what is priority, what is not the priority. If you don't plan at all, how will you know what you should be doing next? Similarly, planning once the beginning of the project and expecting just be able to follow that is really dangerous, because things are not always the same. So that brings up to the our next, we'll see that in the next to next session, where we'll see what to plan, why to plan, and how to plan. So definitely when it comes to the planning, the best planning approach tends to be one that lets you plan the project's immediate future in detail. Don't you think so? I'll give you a single example that when it comes to the planning, don't you think so? Like we also do it in the personal life. We don't plan it for months, for so we take it's always better, and that too in large project, to take one step forward, because it is easy to do it instead of just planning a whole huge thing and then failing. Very, very important that you take one step forward, be practical, and that too, if you're trying new approaches, it's very important that you try it in a very smaller level. And this is known as a rolling wave approach to planning. The deliverables for the next 3 to 4 weeks are broken down into sections so that it's possible to keep track of the project's progress on day-to-day basis. Anything further off than a month is left unplanned as a high level deliverable, so that you can keep an eye on what lies ahead without become overly focused on the minute details. Not paying proper attention to the closure of your project can be just as problematic as poor initiating or planning. If you think your project is finished when you finish the building the product, then you are definitely, it has to be, proper closure, proper initiation, and then proper planning. All these comes as a on the basic project management. But what is an expert project management, that we will see later. Like it is about detailed planning, focus on details, and motivating the team, because it's more, the execution is major part. So for the execution, you definitely need how to motivate your team and also make them as a, and definitely use all those principles of team building, and you enhance your teamwork, and you have to build that feeling in your team that it has to be a teamwork. Because any project, whether it is in manufacturing, it is any project, it can't be just one single person can just complete it. Even it comes to sales and marketing, it's a team effort. Your team is going to put those efforts to get the project closure with the success rate high. So that's how this goes in. Now we will see what are the perceptions, negative perceptions about management. Some perceptions are like it is boring. The first misperception is that project management is an incredible boring distraction from real work. I am sure the technical people, the core technical people, they can. I have always met those people where they say that it's boring, because it is better to just do alone the technical design than just managing people. Whatever your current vocation, you are probably engaged in it because you enjoy it and are good at it. Taking time away from what you normally do to focus on a project management just doesn't feel right. I'm sure all of you can connect, because we have some or the other team members, or in some point of time, at some point of time, we ourselves would have thought, what is this? You have to, in the initial stages, you have to just deal with this Excel data. That's it. So at the very worst, we should agree that the project management is sometimes, many people, I have seen, they think that project management is just Excel. Yeah, it's just data. It does nothing creative. There is nothing creative. There is nothing new, innovative. But I'm sure, like, it is much more than that. And all of us, when we become an expert, when we spend some time in managing projects, that do different projects, I'm sure all of us will agree that it is an art. It's not easy to balance the four parameters so easily and make a project success. It takes huge amount of time to become an expert project management. But trust me, like, there are certain skills. If you master those skills, then it doesn't make, I have seen people who have three in IT industry, people who have 3 to 4 years of experience, they have also become an expert project management manager. So it's not about just time, or it take 14 to 15 years to become a project management. Personally, I believe that anyone can pick up project management skills and apply them in a useful manner. You know why? Because I can justify you with an example. Don't you think all of us in some part of the other, if you're at in the personal life also, we are managing some of the other projects. It does need not to be a normal corporate project from IT or manufacturing. That in some most of the cases, like if we are managing our finances, it's also a kind of mini project. If we are managing our kids school and other activities, daily routines, it's also it also have a goal, and it is also a kind of management. So in some or the other, we are using, as a person, we are using our management skill. Then why then this project management is scary? Have you ever thought about it? I just want to note, it's just to make it more interactive and interesting. I want you to make a note of initial, when you were handling the projects initially, what were your negative perceptions about this field management? And I'm sure that I'll ask you this question again after you have gone through these recordings and these trainings, like, because it's you will realize that it is not that difficult and it's not that boring once you know the practical sides of it. And also, I think, I don't know, it is a very very practical perception people, I don't know, not practical, basically a person people have is that it is just a project managers just deal with Microsoft Office like Excel, PowerPoint presentation. So I think it is, I'm sure we as a project manager know that it requires much more effort than that. Then definitely there are another negative perception that it is too hard, because it's about the responsibility, it is about the dynamics of the project, because one day the client will come to one change, the other day the clients will come with other changes. So it is not very easy. I agree that it is not very easy, but it is not too hard also. Like any other profession, project management have certain principles and nitty-gritties, and if we master that, we'll become an expert project manager.